sometimes, I think quite often, it's become extremely difficult trying to explain what urbanization is. Almost all settlements, right, start from an agrarian economy, virtually. As far back as you can go, all settlements started from agrarian economy. And the wider fishermen, hunters, or farmers. Basically, these were the three occupations. I tried to give an indication yesterday. And I also mentioned the relationship between occupation, which now I want to call enterprise or endeavor, settlements, and the whole essence was survival. Okay. Moving on, whether it was through the English, the French, the Brazilians, Australians, Nigerians, Zimbabweans, people moved on from the agrarian economy into a more complex form of living. And that is where urbanization comes in. So it is important to understand the shift from the agrarian economy to the urban economy. So probably Lagos, Monrovia, Freetown, Abidjan, the first settlers were all farmers or fishermen. And I'm sure you're aware when you read through your history of civilization that settlers tended to settle where there were river bodies, especially along the coast. Okay? So you would notice that invariably people made profit or people made enterprise from the land. Right? And so wherever you went to settle 3,000 years ago, all you had to contend with was the land. Whether you had to grow corn, cassava, rice, coconut, or whatever. And for protein, you had to hunt, either in the forest or in the sea or river. Okay, so that was a very simple form of living. Today, because we're in the city, that same type of living is much more complex. It is not as simple as it used to be 3,000 years ago in a rural setting. But the three ingredients, the core one being survival, still exists. Okay? And the core ones being man's quest for enterprise and habitation and transportation still exists. So you realize that man, in terms of his endeavors, has not changed. It's the complexity of what he does that has changed. So that is where urbanization comes in. And that is the essence of the city. Are we clear? So the city is a very, very complex setup. But the city has an objective. The same objective that we had in the village or in the rural area. But in the city, it's far more complex. And because of its complexity, there are challenges. And that is why we've related all these things you're talking about, advertising, open drains, they don't happen in the rural areas. It only happens in the city. Okay? So, I'll quickly run through this, and I'm saying that urbanization is a more complex form of a rural settlement. I think that is clear. It is a gradual metamorphosis of a vernacular habitation to a more complex and diverse conurbation. So all we're saying is that the village that you know of 3,000 people, when you come to the city, you have 18 million people, all trying to do the same thing. Every individual person trying to survive. Okay? I made a point where in the let me not say village, in the rural area, governance is probably by the chief, the Methodist or Presbyterian or Catholic priest, by maybe the head teacher, and maybe the market queen. These are the people they recognize for governance. Transportation probably is by foot, because you can walk to the market or to the church. Everybody probably lives in some mud house. You really don't see any walls between houses, but people know their boundaries. They wake up in the morning, pick the cutlass or the hoe, and head towards the farms. They come back, they eat, they sell a bit off so that they can buy detergents and other things, and that's it. Okay? But I believe everyone here comes from some city or lives in some city. What I have mentioned in the agrarian economy, the same processes, the governance, the waking up, the movement, the housing, the industry, is just more complex. Are we all clear? Great. So that's what urbanization is about. And that process of urbanization, so let me just take a crop. Let's take, say, maize. In the rural setting, you have a maize farm, probably half an acre. You grow your maize, and at some point you harvest, you put it by the roadside, and you sell off. Right? You try and keep the rest if you can't sell off. In the city, it's a different process. The maize that comes in probably will arrive by some articulated truck, probably go into a warehouse, probably get distributed to factories. The factories will turn those produce into different products. Those different products get distributed into supermarkets and whatnots. Some get exported, either by air, by sea. Okay, so the same ingredient which you're growing in the rural area, as simple as the processes. You pick a cutlass, you walk to the farm, you get your corn, you come and sell. In the city, it's a different process. Are we all clear? So now you understand the complexity of how city functions. The same objective of survival in the city is a different ballgame. It's this process of everybody trying to survive that has created problems for us, or challenges. Okay. I say in both situations, the primary objective is the provision of opportunities for human endeavor. While the rural settlements, I think we've been through this. Okay, before I used to do expectations. What do you want the city to do for you? Okay, we'll skip that because we've made observations. I mentioned what I think is an ideal city, or what constitutes an ideal city. So we have these, and I'd want you to just read them out so that you have a fair idea what ideal city provides for you. So what do we have? And oops, sorry. The real right. Thank you. Right, so we went through a whole process. Ideally, that is what a city should offer you. I'm sure 5 years ago, I would say that's what Berlin or London or Sydney or Rio de Janeiro or Copenhagen or New York offers you. Transportation, power, water, health systems, educational systems, all these systems and structures is what a city offers. In a situation where the city can't offer, that's why we have discontent. And I'll give you a simple example. You went to the mall yesterday. Well planned. It's got parking. It's got identifiable shops. It's got its own systems in place, water, energy, and everything. It's got advertising. It's got pricing. It's got employed people. You can identify everything. There's some amount of order. And there's also a fair amount of patronage. But before I went to the mall, we also went to a The streets were offering commerce, just as the mall also offers commerce. But what happened on the street? The hawkers were struggling with vehicles. Vehicles were struggling with refuse trucks. The hawkers were also struggling with pedestrians. People who had shops who couldn't have patronage had brought their goods onto the pavement, like you mentioned. But these two situations are all trying to offer service to people. In one situation, we see order. In another situation, we see disorder. But I tell you, there's more energy in a shaman trying to make a living than you find in the mall. And the mistake we make that puts us in this situation is because we never seem to plan for everybody. So whereas if you wanted to build a mall today, the planning authorities will tell you you can have 3 acres here, we'll bring you water, we'll bring you electricity, we'll provide you gas, we'll give you telecom connection, we'll even create a taxi rank for you, and all that and all that. In 3 years, your mall will be up and running, and we'll call that good order. But if another 10 decided they wanted to street hawk, they probably even won't listen to you. Okay? Which means that whereas the city provides you an opportunity to realize your endeavors, they don't get it. And eventually, there'll be discord in the system. And that discord will lead to all kinds of things. Okay? So for me, I believe the city provides you opportunities. Okay. So ideally, all we're saying is that if you plan properly, you can get the best out of it. Correct? I don't know how many people noticed when we're in Tema. You know, Tema was a planned city by our first president. Who said yes? Who said yes? Yes. Do you want to brief us a bit on it?
Hello.
Okay. All right. So I totally agree with you because I was born there, and I think we have where we live, our settlements, we have our market area, and our hospitals are like in a good environment. We have pavements. You don't walk like in the sand. No, we have structured pavements to our houses. Even a car can drive on the pavement into the house, and our roads are always in good shape until recent. So I think Tema is one of the best areas to have lived or grow up from.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, Tema is a planned city. And I'm not sure if you noticed, there's a road we took to the harbor. You realize that on the left side were industries, on the right side were the residential. Now, when Tema was planned, they built the harbor, and Akosombo, our main dam, had just been done, so power for industries and everything, the essence of the harbor. And then the motorway was done to connect to Accra, so they could have access to the airport. And then all these buildings came up for workers who would work in the factories, different grades of workers. So Tema really works on a community system. They have different communities. So what happened? There was opportunity for human endeavor in building Tema. So settlers and migrants who wanted to take advantage of that opportunity came to Ashaiman, which wasn't part of the planning. And eventually, that settlement has grown to what it is today. You can see the paradox between the Tema planning and what has ended up as Ashaiman. So critically, the essence is that there are always various stakeholders in all situations. And until you take into consideration all the stakeholders, you will be failing when you're trying to address issues. And as leaders, it is very, very critical that you recognize that in every situation, there are several stakeholders. I'll give you another example. We recently done an interchange at what we call Kwame Nkrumah Circle. I don't know how many of you have seen it. Have you seen it? Great. Now, this interchange was meant to improve traffic. But for me, the stakeholders were not just those moving vehicles. There are hawkers, there are food vendors, there are pedestrians, there are terminals, bus terminals, taxi terminals, and whatnots in the whole place. The concentration on reducing traffic time, more or less dictated what infrastructure to put in there. The hawkers haven't left, they've increased. The vendors haven't left. Pedestrian movement is more chaotic. We're still having flooding. The terminal hasn't moved. So then you ask yourself, what really has been solved? Okay? Because the prime concern was to be able to move traffic. But I tell you, the congestion was caused more by commercial vehicles. But they are still there. So for me, we spent over $100 million and the problem hasn't changed. Because we never considered all the stakeholders. Okay? I probably will end up digressing if... Okay, so let's look at the reality of African cities. We've looked at what we think is an ideal situation, right? So, we'll read again. In African cities, what do we have? This is also environmental degradation. Okay. Thank you. What has gone wrong? We've seen the ideal situation. Water, energy, everything, and opportunities. Yeah? We've seen them. We've also seen what is wrong. And in fact, before we started, you virtually, almost everything I have there, you have here. Just that you didn't add some of the soft issues, like marginalization, social discontent, and the fact that sometimes you have minorities, issues ignored, and all that. So now we're going to try and address what has gone wrong. Are we ready? Great. So we're going back into, it's about 12 o'clock. Lunch is when? Yeah, I know you don't play with your lunch. So what we're going to do is we'll spend 15 minutes to, first of all, can I have the leaders of, let's put it this way. When you were doing your presentations, I made a few observations. As leaders, you're very accountable. So presentation is critical, very, very critical. Now, those who may have bright ideas in your discussion may not necessarily be the most articulate. Okay? And so even though he may have the best of ideas in discussion, the tendency is to nominate him to come and present. But when he comes to present, he's not necessarily the most articulate. Secondly, in presentation, we're trying to be leaders. Lunch is fixed at 1. It's now exactly 56 minutes to 1. And so time is fixed. So when you have to do a presentation, you must recognize that what is it that I want to present? What is the best impact in my presentation? When you get into lecture form, and even though you've made your statements, you want to try and explain to us what is behind that statement, then you really haven't thought well of what that is why I try to make sure that everything we have here, when you see street hawking, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you see poor drains, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It helps you in your presentation because you're all going to be leaders. And in leadership, you're accountable. So part of your training should teach you how to present, how to engage, and make sure that your message gets to people. People understand the message in the best possible form. Okay? Right. So we'll break into our animal groups. And I'm sure you can pick any two of the topics. But I think in order that we don't repeat ourselves, let's agree on who picks what. Okay? So, can we have one from each group? Anyone? What group is lion? Great. Come up. And this is eagle. Great. Just one person. Anyone? Hey, leaders. Okay. And then elephant. Just one person. Okay, great. Pick any two topics. Where's the other one? Yeah, pick any two topics. But agree amongst yourselves so that you don't pick the same topics, yeah? You have just 2 minutes. In the meantime, excuse me, my assistant. In the meantime, while they are picking the topics, I will, quickly take any comments or any questions on what I've just mentioned. If you have any comments or any questions. Yes, Kofi.
Thank you very much. We have modern cities. We have very old cities like London that has evolved with modern trends of development. And we have a place like Tema, which is fairly young. Where did we get it wrong? Is it that we did not plan spatial, we did not plan well, or we just plan for our immediate needs?
Okay, I think Tema started very well. And you notice that there are several things that go into achieving what you call London. There's leadership. There's vision. There's planning. All this is part of a governance system. Okay? Aside of the governance system, there's also a system that makes sure that what ideas and visions we have can be translated. Okay? And that is why London has succeeded and we haven't succeeded. So we have challenges with leadership, first of all. We have challenges even with vision. We have challenges with planning, and we have challenges with institutional governance. So the systems don't work. Now, Ashaiman has a municipal assembly, which means that everything that was not right, which you saw, shouldn't have happened. But why is it happening? Is it because of institutional weakness? Is it because of irresponsible citizens? Is it because of lack of opportunity for people to express themselves? Okay? Wherever you pass, it looks like there is some paradox. A terminal that's, I don't know whether the terminal is delineated by space. There's a terminal around what we call 37 that invariably, and I observed this 2 days ago. No, when I got off the bus. This terminal virtually takes almost like 80 vehicles. But at peak, there are almost 120 vehicles vying for the terminal. So the remaining 40 that can't get into the terminal, what happens? They park on the pavement. When they park on the pavement, what happens? The pedestrians get onto the street. When they take one lane of the street, it means vehicles don't have the 3 lanes. So then why did we sink money into doing a 3-lane road? When the objective of the road was to allow you to move from Labadi probably to Jowolo within, say, 10 minutes. Because of this situation, you end up moving it in 30 minutes. Are you with me? So we create our own problems. But it is worth understanding what the problems are and being able to procure solutions. Okay, so even if we're given $10 billion today by Switzerland or Canada, what do we want to do with it? And how do we do it? And how come that we have a road, say, in front of Kanishi Market, and one whole lane is devoted to buses who park on it? Another lane is devoted to refuse dump. So then you have only one lane. So what's the economic benefit of the road? Okay? So these are the challenges that are real in our economic life. Okay? Are you done? Yes, sorry. This is supposed to be brief.
Thank you, sir. Mine is a question.
Yeah.
Usually when I see such things, the first thing that comes to my mind is people. I think that the kind of person you are, the way you perceive life, I don't think that not having money is the reason why you should keep your surroundings dirty. I think it's your mind. So I'd like to know, as leaders, we will take initiatives. We will try to do things within our communities. Since you're specialized in urbanization, how do we address the mindsets of people so that when government or we are able to raise money from anywhere to make these slums a proper place for people to live, they have a better mindset so that they can develop?
Okay. I'll answer you just briefly because we need to go do our exercises. I mentioned a couple of things that needs to happen when we're talking about governance. I talked about leadership, I talked about vision, I talked about systems, I talked about implementation. Before I picked this mic, Uncle Nat was speaking, we agreed lunch snack was going to be delayed, correct? We all did our presentations, we set time limits, and we all spoke. We agreed we're going to have peer review, and we did it. We all went for snack, and we agreed, and we came back. And everyone in this room is quiet except me, because we've agreed on what to do. We've also given people opportunities to express themselves. No one has been prevented from expressing themselves. We've agreed that lunch is 1 o'clock, correct? We've also agreed that we're going to work in our river groups, correct? You appointed your own leaders to go and pick your own topics, correct? So, since 8:30, we've put in place a governance system that has worked, right? And it is, take me as government and take yourself as the citizens. We've dialogued to this point to agree on several things, on how things here must work. I don't think it's a mindset. You need to put systems in. You see, when we left Ashaiman, the housing, and we turned onto the road, there was, in fact, that drive from the house, the residence, till we got onto the bridge, was a complete summary of everything that is wrong. We were in the lead bus. There was a refuse truck in front of us that was being pulled by a man. So obviously he was slowing everybody. He was probably moving at 5 kilometers per hour, whereas we wanted to move at 40 kilometers. We couldn't move. When we got to the junction, the traffic lights didn't work. And so everybody tried to survive. And even instead of one vehicle, 3 vehicles wanted to move. This was a 3-lane road, and it had commercial shops on the side. There were hawkers also on the pavement, and there were hawkers on the streets. So like I mentioned, the 3-lane road was now only accessible by 1 lane for cars. Those in the shops felt they were disadvantaged in selling because the hawkers are now taking the pavement. And obviously, if you were walking to shop, your first line of opportunity is a hawker. So the money in the shop then takes these things out of the shop and also onto the pavement. Okay. I've given you 2 scenarios of how governance can work and how governance doesn't work. Okay. So, but you need to recognize all these stakeholders. Like when we moved from the building, trying to get into timber. They're all part of the system. How does everybody get the opportunity to do what they have to do without being a nuisance to the other? And as we sit here between 8:30 and now, things have worked. Why are we not fighting? Why are people not complaining they are not getting opportunity? Why are people not trying to sit on other people's seats? Why? Because we have collectively agreed why we are here, what objective it is that we are here, and how we prosecute the agenda that we are here for. And you can make it happen. Right? So for the brief moment here, I'm the leader. I am dialoguing. Note, I'm not dictating. I'm dialoguing. And in dialoguing, we're trying to achieve consensus so that together we can try and achieve. It's very important. Right. It's 12:15. We will break into our animal groups. I'm sure you've seen your topics. Let me just... What are your topics? Air pollution and traffic congestion. What's your topic?
So street walking and overcrowding.
Okay, and what's your topic?
Overcrowding.
Rubbish and infrastructure. Infrastructure is pretty broad. Okay, so let's break into animal groups. You have 15 minutes, and 15 minutes is 15 minutes. So in 12 minutes, you should be concluding. In 14 minutes, you should be leaving where you are. And in 15 minutes, you should be seated. Correct? Thank you. Fun, don't. Great. Okay. I think Elephant will present first. Oh, where's Elephant?
Elephant.
I think they were the most orderly. And then Lion will present. And then Eagle will present. Okay, but we need to agree on something. We've lost 10 minutes. Can we extend lunchtime to 10 past 1? Great. Right. Okay. So that gives us just 25 minutes, right? And it's always unfortunate that when we get to this section of the presentations, we just don't have too much time. It's unfortunate. So what we'll do is, you all have 5 minutes to present. We'll do the presentations one after the other. And then the last 10 minutes, we will exercise amongst ourselves what has been presented and whether we really have the solutions to the topics that we've talked about. But mind you, I have a marking scheme. So once we're done, we'll close off with my observations. Yeah? So go ahead.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are from the Elephant Group, and we are going to do a presentation on poor parking and refuse. I will now turn over the mic to my colleagues so they can better elaborate.
Good afternoon, everyone. The problems we identified are poor parking and refuse. I will start with poor parking, so Belle will continue with refuse. So poor parking, the way we think we can solve it is have designated space for parking. Most of the time in the urban centers, you find it's very difficult to park because there's not a place allocated for parking. And you should understand that it's okay to park somewhere else and walk as a form of exercise to your offices instead of parking anywhere. And also multi-level parking facilities. Some of these are already available, but there can be more. Carpooling. For all of you who don't know what carpooling is, this is where you live in the same area with somebody, but you work or you usually use the same route. So you agree to leave your car at home so that you can ride with the other person to your destination. It's called carpooling. And then alternative means of transport where people can park their cars at home, because now we have very good bus systems, and then they can use, now even the buses have lanes alone designated for them. So they get to their destinations faster. So alternative means of transport. And then task force. We have this also, but it can be improved where you are penalized for parking haphazardly around in the city.
Okay, for the purpose of time, I'm just going to talk briefly about this, and if you have any questions, you can meet us for clarifications. So I will start with sensitization, which is very important. So before you carry out any activity, you need to sensitize or educate the community to understand the reason why you must not dispose of refuse. And secondly, we talk about regular collection of refuse. Most often, the trash can is there, the refuse is done, but the company that collects refuse does not come. Maybe they come after 3 days, which always makes the place look untidy. Alternative packaging. We encourage the people to use more paper than plastic because paper is biodegradable. And provision of bins. There are already bins, but we think that if the bins are redesigned, because some of the bins are too high, so people cannot dump the refuse in it, so they throw it right out there, which does not make the place look untidy. So briefly, that's the solution for this. And if you have any question, you can come to the Elephant Group for clarifications. Thank you.
All right, that was our presentation, and thanks a lot for listening. Q&A time, question and answer.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So can we have Lion? Are you cats? No, we are lions. But a lion is a big cat.
Yes.
Yeah, we are a big cat.
Hello, may we have your attention, please? Okay, ladies, gentlemen, dear members of Parliament, we are here in front of you with the cabinet to explain you or to tell you a couple of problems that we are facing in our community and some of the solutions we are proposing. And then you are going to vote a budget for us. I have my Minister of Health, I have my Minister of Environment, our Minister of Transport, and our Minister of Urbanization. And I'm the President. Thank you. I'm going to give them the floor one by one. They will explain to you the problems and also suggest solutions to you. And we're all going to look at it together. Thank you very much.
We identified air pollution as one of the problems. And then the problems we have are from the cars, gas emission from the cars, where we have congestion, carbon dioxide coming from the car exhaust. We have from the gutters, the slums, methane gas from the drainage, then overpopulation. We have people farting along the streets. And then from the stench we have from toilet systems in the slums. So
okay, thank you very much. As the Minister of Environment, we have identified the solutions to the problem she just elaborated on. Now, we treat the toilet with chemicals in order to reduce the scent coming from them, which contaminate the environment. And we also initiate an initiative by the community members to do a cleaning up of the gutters. Each household will be responsible to participate in that initiative, do a cleaning of the gutters in order to keep it clean. Remember, once the gutters are clean, there will be a safe community. And we also ask each community dwellers to report anyone caught messing up these gutters or the drainage. We also initiate a tree planting campaign to reduce the level of carbon emission in the atmosphere. Now, what are we going to do the last? We're going to take old cars from the roads and encourage more or the use of good buses. Now, people with cars, they will see the need to leave their cars at home, ride in public transport in order to reduce their carbon footprint. So when you have, like, take for instance, everyone here riding a single car, everyone has a car and plying the street with it. The amount of carbon that is released in the air, it will be less than everyone here boarding a single bus. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ladies. Gentlemen, there is one other solution we are proposing is to establish a green police. This is actually a new initiative in countries like Morocco, Tunisia, who have very much improved. Like, that police will be there. Anytime that you are throwing any trash in the street, the police will catch you right away and then send you to prison. So that's another solution we are proposing. So let's hear some of the problems we're facing with transport. Yeah, please go. Traffic, yeah.
So we don't have this written down, so you have to pay attention to me. We have traffic congestion as a problem. Some of the problems we identified under this is lack of exit and entry points at our public spaces. As we saw yesterday, there were so many cars coming out of the mall and then so many cars coming in. But because we don't have so many exit and entry points, it's created traffic. So that's one problem. And then we also have pedestrians crossing wrongly on the road. So because of the zebra crossings are not observed by the cars, the pedestrians are forced to use different parts of the road to cross at, which causes, traffic congestion. Because once you are moving and you see people moving across, you need to stop, which creates traffic. We also have cars parked by the road, wrong parking. We have few parking spaces in our cities, which is causing so many traffic. The roads are not enough. We have 3 lanes and 1 lane is being taken by the cars. So that's just 2 lanes more, and that's not enough for us. We also have inefficient efforts by the traffic police. The police are not doing enough. They see all the wrong parking and people moving on the street, but they don't do enough. They will rather take your money and let you go. Yeah. So he will talk about the solutions.
And as my able minister has rightly stated, and me being the minister responsible for welfare, some of the solutions with regards to like car parkings, unregulated car parkings, for example, we proposed that there are fines that should be levied on people that just park unnecessarily on the roads, and that there are supposed to be like amounts being paid by people that if you park your car for like 30 minutes, it goes with the cost. So you don't leave your car the whole of the day at a particular spot, and nobody is saying anything. And with regards to the lack of entry and exit points, I think the solution to that is very simple. We just have to make it, to regulate it properly, to ensure that there are specific routes where vehicles do use to enter and specific routes where vehicles use to exit the various points. These are some of the solutions we have to these problems.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We are actually looking for a big budget to expand roads because we would like to build more roads. Yesterday when we went to Ashama, there are roads actually, but we need more roads so that the traffic will be more fluent. So we are presenting our project and some of the problems we face here on the ground. And here you are. We are actually looking forward to listening from you, getting suggestions, and see how various ways we can allocate a new budget for this project. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. No. Can we have Eagle? Is it Igwe or Eagle? Ah.
Okay. Good afternoon, fellows, and thank you for giving us your ears. We are the Eagles, and I'm the president. With my cabinet, we have Minister of Youth and Employment, we have Minister of Water and Housing, and we have other ministers, Minister of Trade and Minister of Information, who all together contributed to this project. So the Eagles are focusing on 2 points here. We have in Africa that about 60% of the urban job is contributed by the informal sector, and new jobs, 90% of them are contributed by informal sector. When we have street hawking accounting for the largest amount of in the jobs contributed by the informal sector. So this is a major problem that we would like to tackle in our community. And secondly, we have the drainage problem that we are focusing on, and we know how drainage affects our community, blocking and the health problems related to it. So I will leave my Minister of Youth and Employment to take over with the problem of street hawking. Thank you.
As Minister for Youth and Employment, I'm concerned about street hawking. I'm concerned about the life of our youths on the roads. And we define street hawking as selling of goods in any form on the streets. You would agree with me that yesterday, while we were at the markets, there were loads of street hawking. And we realized that this street hawking is causing a lot of problems, and they have effects. We have road accidents as one of the major effects of street hawking. Then we have traffic congestion. You will know, you realize that even the time we spent in navigating our way through the market was much yesterday. Then there's poor quality control of goods, because anybody can just walk into the market and sell anything. Then there's environmental pollution, and the health hazards are enormous. Now, the causes we found out were poverty, unemployment. In most of the African countries, the rate of unemployment is high. And if I can't get a blue or white collar job, the next thing for me, regardless of my level of education, is let me go into business. So most of these market people, if you check out, majority of them are there not because they are not educated, but because they don't have jobs to do. Then ignorance and negligence, even on the part of some educated illiterates, the majority of them some are educated, but you would agree that they would say, if I can't get a space, let me hawk, let me move around. Some even believe that by the time they move around, they will make more money than those in the shops. Then we have non-structured markets and taxations. If you look at the structure of the Makola market yesterday, you would agree that they are quite unstructured. And if we really dig deep to find out the revenue that the government is making from these people is high. They tax them, they have tickets that they take, they pay for every now and then. And especially on the shop owners. So one will naturally say, if I can't get a shop because the cost is high, and even the weekly payment I'll be making is high. How much profit am I making? So they would rather prefer to hawk on the streets. Now the solution we try to prefer is provision of skilled training. Like I said, there are educated illiterates. So we want to sensitize them on the problems the menace is generating and how these things can be curbed. Then we want cheap and affordable market stalls. Now we have a lot of ministers here. I hope you will collaborate with me in my office to create stalls, cheap stalls for these people so that they can market their goods. Then we also need to sensitize more. I think more to reduce the level of ignorance, people need to know and know and know. They need to be told over and over. Then we have to involve the market executives as a form of deterrent. Anybody caught hawking on the streets, the market executive, because they are the users of the market, they are the ones that are there, they know themselves. They will help us in tracking this menace. Thank you very much.
And now on poor drainage.
Yeah, Minister of Water and Housing. And of course, we have a problem of drainage systems in Africa, in our cities. And of course, if we can compare the drainage system in Tema and that of Makola is different. That's why in Makola you have the market system, or you don't have you don't see the drainage. Drainage is not open. And the causes of the drainage system, it causes what? Flooding. What happens when you take the cabbage and you dump them along the drainage? What happens when it rains? Water don't actually flow, and most of the water actually gets to the dwelling house of people. But it causes what? Loss of property and loss of properties and life. It's happening in my country, a place called Krube. What happens during the rains? You have a lot of flooding, and what happens? Lost property and lives. And also, it causes what? Health issues, like diseases. Of course, we can all aware, when the place is not clean, what happens? It becomes a dwelling place for mosquitoes. And what happens? Mosquitoes now causes what? Cholera and all the rest of it. And also what? Slow development. Of course, when the place is not actually clean, it's actually slow development. Investors will not go to that place. That's why Tema is difficult for investors to go to Tema compared to Makula Market because of the environment. And also, it causes air pollution. Of course, when the drainage is not taken care of, what happens? You have odor, and that odor is actually not good. It irritates people, and it causes a lot of health issues. And I think the solution of it is that the provision of what waste bins. We can have what dust bins along the streets, whereby it's difficult for you to actually dump wastage along the drainage. And we also have what sorting of refuse. That means you have the cabbage. So therefore, you're now trying to sort out the one that you can recycle and the one that you cannot recycle. And we also have what engaging the youth. It's very important. We can get the young people. They can distill, remove all the dirt from the drainages, and then when water comes now, it will flow normally. And also have what? Covering of drainages. Drainage is supposed to be covered. They're also supposed to be open because it causes damage, and it causes damage. And cleanliness awareness. I think we're supposed to have young people in our environment where we sensitize people about the importance of health, the importance of them not taking their cabbages to the drainage. I think I can stop here. Thank you very much.
Hope our project sells well to your minds. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much. We really have just 6 minutes. So we'll take a question each from each group. Is that fair? We've already extended 10 minutes beyond lunch. It's 12:04. We have just 6 minutes. So we'll take, in fact, not question, comments. Comments. So I don't expect answers, responses. So we'll take one from here. Who you want? Yeah. Comment here. Okay, him. This side must be a lady. You don't have any comments? Great. So then a third comment.
All right.
Greg, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I think the first group, I learned something called carpooling when they mentioned, and I think that's a great idea, but I think beyond just saying that idea, in this age of distrust, and then I don't know how personally I would want to.
Thank you. Right. Second.
Secondly.
Excuse me. Okay. One. Just a comment.
Yeah. Just one.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry we ran out of time. I need to also round up. Yes.
Yes. Yes. So, statistics available shows that out of 6.4 million children in Ghana, there are about 2.5 of these children are involved in street activities. And for street activities, we are all aware that it results to prostitution, child marriage, teenage pregnancy, and other things. So it's very important that we take these things very seriously. And as upcoming leaders, let us try our very best to get rid of some of these things.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. First of all, clap for yourselves. I think you've all done wonderfully well. But I have a few comments. First of all, I think I mentioned the fact that as leaders, you need to engage. So presentation was very, very critical. One group came up here, and even though the subject challenge had been mentioned, they spent more than half the time explaining why the challenge. But we all know the challenge. We want solutions because you're leaders. So trying to explain to us what the challenge meant and when the gutter is open and it's got filthy and it got stench, and we all know that. And that's not why we're making you a leader. We're making you a leader because we want solutions to that drainage or whatever it is. So that is one point that you must learn to appreciate. Secondly, the first group that came, I specifically mentioned electing the president and 4 ministers. They didn't mention anything about who was who and how they came up about how they were going to do presentation. Don't forget, we're also talking about accountability. In urbanization, you must relate to people. And you can't go and want to believe that you haven't engaged people's minds and therefore you want to present the way you want to do things. Okay, I scored on 5 points and I explained how I did that. The first was content. Content means that once you pick a subject, what is the value of that subject to us in today's terms? Okay, we've looked at all the issues. Yesterday, we spent the whole of yesterday driving through Rashaman, through Tema, through the Habo area, Teshinungwa to Makol and everything and back. So we want to see how you understand the subject matter that you picked, right? The second one was presentation style. And in dialoguing with ordinary people, I think I must be avoided. The reference to yourself as the savior or the salvation, I think is improper. When you're dealing with people, let them understand that they are part of the solution. Okay? And posturing as president and posturing as minister, I think it really doesn't work in our situation. Okay? So in presentation, you must recognize that. Presentation also, you had limited time, and I think you all did well in terms of the time, how much you put into that time, and I think, you know, the first presentation was pretty concise. And then also teamwork. It's obvious that I think everybody participated. It's obvious that you're taking time to take the topics and you have discussed it. I think the missing link is if we had spent 10 minutes discussing and we have 6 pages of written work, how do we translate it into one sheet in 5 minutes? That's part of leadership. How do you sell a message in the minimum time? I was just speaking with Uncle Nat that the late Fidel Castro used to talk for 7-8 hours. I don't know how much you remember by the 8th hour what he said in the first hour. Okay? But here are people trying to find a solution to pollution or traffic management or gutters and stuff like that. So we really don't have time. Impact is critical. So you need to select exactly what it is you want to say. If you mentioned open gutters or drainage, exactly what it is you want to say that makes the impact for it to resonate. That yes, we do have a solution and we can work on it. Okay? And then relevance. What is it that we're talking about and how do the people relate to it? Letting them believe that truly we have answers to the solutions that we're discussing. Yeah? And the last one was innovation. As African cities, we're probably 30, 40 years behind. I didn't feel the sense of trying to move African cities. The solutions were normal solutions. And in fact, every solution recognized a problem, but did not recognize the cause. So when you take traffic congestion, we recognize the fact that there's so many cars on our streets, so let's do carpooling, let's do public transport, and let's do what we'll find people, we'll build more story parks. But we didn't question why people are moving from A to B. And whether people needed to even move. And whether if you're in A and you have a computer or a smartphone, you can't do what you're going to do in B. Nobody engaged in innovating so that we don't have problems. And then some of the measures were so drastic that there'll be what? Police against hawkers, or there'll be fine against hawkers. But you see, it's obvious you haven't understood the African economic system. Because hawking is part of the system. And I'll give you just a very simple example. When you go down into the shop there, you can buy a box of biscuits for, 12 cedis. Because maybe your expendable income this morning is 50 cedis. Those ladies who send their children to school every day can only afford 2 cedis. And that's what a hawker does. As against the shop downstairs. So what you're trying to tell us is this: those whose expendable income a day is 5 cedis shouldn't be part of the system. So let's cut the hawkers out. You can't do that. Obviously, you don't understand this problem. And you don't know the cause why they're hawkers, and you don't know why they're on the streets. And everybody talks about skills training. Skills to do what? Okay? But we're going too far. I think we'll just send you I'll send you a presentation, because there's a bit more beyond what has gone wrong, so that you can read through and understand. Okay? But if you really don't understand urbanization, and personally, I think that the last cohort, I made a point that when the UK decided to leave the EU, and I'm sure you all know what the Brexit is, one of the critical things that the UK thought about was to maintain London as a financial center. Because it's London that makes the UK. And there's a reason why London is a financial center. And like I told you, there's a reason why cities have relevance for people. Okay? So as leaders, you need to constantly have some vision as to what the city can offer. And all the challenges that you've mentioned, if the opportunities existed for solutions, we'll have those solutions. Okay? I don't want to talk too much. I think it's time up. Let me thank all of you. And I'm sure you're eager to find out who won. I will not mention the detailed scores as to content, blah, 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 blah. But elephants were first. And, excuse me. I think their biggest strength was presentation. Presentation won them the day. Their weakest point was innovation. There was nothing exciting in their solutions. And for the second position, there's a tie. So thank you very much. Enjoy your lunch.